something that's grounded, that has that much gravity to it.
What we'll have is an FOML or FMOL. FMOL.
What is it?
Free man on the land.
Yeah. Free man on the land. Yeah, until they come out with their Nazi jackboot blue costumes. But I get what Charles is saying, and I really think what Charles is saying is, to me, sounds like it just rings of truth. The only problem is the system is so diverse, the matrix is so perversive that it will not allow the cohesion necessary between enough bodies, enough members to have a coordinated, unified front, because they're going to distract, they're going to disassemble, they're going to infiltrate, they're going to break down, and you can't get a lot of people to organize in a coherent fashion. But if you could, the philosophy Charles is speaking of, I believe, is the way to do it. If you get enough people to participate.
A starting point, you've already identified a starting point. You said you got a friend or two that has something, and when he gets stopped by the road agents, they let him go and do not detain. That's a start.
Well, those are functioning right now.
Yeah.
But it may not be the optional, what do you mean, the optimal way of doing something, because these guys, it's independent efforts. We're really concerned with some sort of a group effort. I hear what you're saying about having the strength of the individual intact, and that lends itself to the group. I kind of think the other way works very well too. If the group is intact, it lends its strength to the individual. You just got to say you're an FBI member. They don't care what your name is. I'm FBI. They leave you the hell alone.
The group, though, depends on the individuals. There is no such thing as a group. You have a number of individuals coming together with a common purpose, and they support each other. You can call it a group or whatever. Just the same as the group, the association that I'm kind of developed is called the People's House. Okay.
The syndicate.
Yeah. Whatever.
Can I jump in a little bit?
Yeah.
Klaus, are you familiar with the Exodus 18 model of government of tens and fifties and hundreds and thousands?
Just I've read a little bit about that. I got a taste of it. What we got, the tens, the hundreds, the thousands. Those represent levels of organization and I'm at a loss for words, but that are used in the biblical sense.
Well, if I might carry on there, it's also the common law sense.
Right.
The common law tradition carried on with that biblical model.
Right.
Okay, it's the only thing that miraculously survived from 3,400 years ago back to 1,000 years ago in 1066 AD. England was the pure common law model was carrying on very righteously with the Israelite Torah model of local self-governing communities of tens, fifties, hundreds, and thousands. A common law county is supposed to be 1,000 qualified electors and posse comitatus. A common law precinct is supposed to be 100 common law qualified electors and posse comitatus, able-bodied men. The biblical book of Numbers talks about men over the age of 20 able to go to war. This is how they counted and organized their community and law enforcement in ancient Israel. It's how they did it in ancient common law England, and through the Seventh Amendment incorporated into our U.S. Constitution. It's how we're supposed to be doing it here in modern America, but we're surrounded by Judas ghosts like Anna von Reitz that are out here talking about warmed over versions of the Roman Empire municipal version of government, and they're not talking about forming our common law communities, especially at the smallest grassroots level of our 10 household township communities, each of which is led by a town constable who's statutorily recognizable as a peace officer and has a right to pack a gun and point it at anybody's face if he's got probable cause to believe that they've committed a crime. And that includes IRS agents and FBI agents and US DOJ agents and corrupted, jackbooted Nazi judges. And that's
where I want to get to right away. I want that status. I want that identity. I want that as a group, and I want that on a card.
We can do that. We can do that, but we all got to at least have it clear in our mind that this is head and shoulders better than what goofballs like Anna von Ritz and the others are talking about. See, we're reaching back to 3,400 years to Exodus 18, and 1,000 years to the pure common law model that was partially resurrected in 1776. A lot of the tyranny of the Roman Empire model of government, of the British Empire of England, was thrown off in 1776. But guess what? 1789, 13 years later, a satanic number, all of a sudden, that went out the window when they abandoned the Articles of Confederation and they embraced that Roman Empire Civil Municipal Article 3 U.S. Constitution. Things started spiraling downhill from there. Real nasty. And so we got to get back to those spiritual ideals that are based upon a hierarchy. I've talked about this before. A hierarchy of at the lower levels, it's 10 times 10 times 10, tens over hundreds over thousands, and at the upper levels, it's multiples of 12s. This plugs into the biblical 144,000. I imagine most of you are familiar with where it talks in Revelation about New Jerusalem being 144,000. That means multiples of self-governing communities. At the inner circle, at the higher level, the apex of the pyramid is divided by 12s. And at the lower levels, the grassroots levels, where it's simpler, it's easier to build the consensus. You only have 10 to work with. It's easier to build a consensus and establish your own self-governing communities and just be concerned about keeping the peace. That's why town constables and justice of the peace judicial officers are called peace officers in statutory codes and things. All you got to worry about is keeping the peace. Up at the state and national level, where it's 12-member communities, that's where you got to be concerned about the metaphysics, and you got to be able to do mental and spiritual acrobatics in the debating forums to hammer out what are the fine-tuning points of all this. But at the town constable and the local precinct level, it's all real simple. Just keep the peace in good faith, and anything that they can't handle at the local levels, just like described in the Bible, they pass up the hierarchy to the shire reeve. The sheriff is really a judicial officer. Every sheriff in the USA has judicial authority. He's relegated right now to just being an executive for the de facto courts. There's so many things that we can start capitalizing on if we comprehend the immense amount of power that's coming to us from ancient biblical Torah law and from common law tradition as articulated in the 7th Amendment. I yield.
Hey, Klaus, it's like Charles is saying, right? The entire nomenclature of the established government has to convert over to the people politic, the people body dynamic that Charles is referring to, which means we have to create our own associations. We have to create our own order, our own self-governance, and we recognize ourselves as the entity, as the authority. We recognize ourselves as the status rather than going to some outside entity to recognize us. It sounds like that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
You mentioned the 7th Amendment.
What did you say, Klaus?
You mentioned the 7th Amendment.
Yeah, it references the rules of the common law in the 7th Amendment. That's
institutes at common law. There we go. The value in controversy shall exceed $20. The right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury. Blah blah blah. Okay.
Yeah, and jury trial process only comes to us through the tradition of the common law.
Right.
All other traditions are Roman Empire municipal civil, and Roman Empire civil municipal does not respect right to trial by jury. It's only a perversion of the Roman Empire despotic system in America that they give any lip service at all to right to trial by jury. It's been a merger, but the civil municipal Roman Empire model of law is inherently in conflict with the libertarian common law ideals. Okay, because look at how the judges in civil municipal courts, when they purport to be following common law due process. They want rules of evidence. They want to tell the jurors what evidence is admissible and what evidence is not admissible. See, in pure common law,
you don't have a right to do that.
Exactly. It's a violation of natural organic law for anybody to tell that jury what evidence is admissible or what evidence is inadmissible. They got the right to decide for themselves. And so we've got deep problems in just trying to get people out of the quagmire of confusion that has purposefully been engineered for us, and try to break free and start looking at how real organic law in the common law and biblical Torah law tradition would start seriously empowering all of us at the grassroots level.
What do you think, Klaus? Makes sense?
Yeah, sure.
It does to me.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
How about the guy in the red shirt? He keeps raising his hand. He's got something he wants to say. Are you muted?
Mark from Oregon. Jump on in, Mark. But quick before. Our recording is recording now, so we're back on record. Mark, we can't quite hear you there. Mark, go ahead and speak.
I think he's muted.
I think you're muted, Mark.
I'll just say that I've seen a couple of messages that Mike, probably about 10 minutes ago, was asking to speak. So I yield.
Okay.
Why can't he speak? He's muted? Is that his name, Mike?
Mike Zarzano, yeah.
Is that the guy in the red shirt?
No, that's
there's no name there.
Mark Jorgensen in Oregon.
Well, is he muted? He can't speak. It looks like he raised his hand a number of times.
Yeah. I thought he was talking earlier. He was talking okay earlier. I didn't mute him.
I think he's having trouble figuring out. It looks like he has quite a bit to say, but he just can't say it. All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Hey, Charles, I really wish you would have got what you said recorded, because I would have liked to memorize that speech so I could say it over and over to people.
Well, thank you. There's more where that came from, and I think I did get it. The recording started slightly before that last little rant I went into.
Yeah, you need a lot more of those, man. Klaus, you agree? That was really right on time.
Yeah, something that needs to be, looked at multiple times.
Yeah. I certainly need to look at it quite a bit. I certainly need to be able to memorize it and wield it as easy as Charles wields it.
Well, it comes from long time of studying it.
Doesn't come overnight.
Yeah. It's going to take a while for y'all to come up to speed on. I studied Leroy Schweitzer for years before I got to be able to imitate him, Montana Freeman. I've studied under great gurus in the past, and it took me a long time to come to where I'm at. And it's just going to take a lot of you, the rest of you.
Well, Charles, your mission is to duplicate yourself. That's the golden mission you've got here, to duplicate yourself.
That's part of why the videos are going. And I don't know, Mark, I don't know what I can do to I don't know what I can do to help you unmute yourself there, Mark. Anyway, dang, you might try disconnecting and reconnecting, Mark. That's the only thing I can.
There is a little monitor on Mark's screen that shows that he's got a weak connection. I've seen it go between red and yellow. Everybody else has blue. I've seen Mike's microphone go on and off. So I don't know if he's got ability to speak out or not, but he can advocate for himself. I yield.
Thank you, David. Yeah, it looks like Mike isn't with us, and It looks like Mark disconnected for a few moments here too. So I guess we'll just continue on. But I think our agenda was our coronavirus militarism complaint. I think our second item in our agenda. There you are, Mark. Can you talk?
Testing 1, 2.
Hey, we got you.
Okay, great.
All right. Yeah, just calling back in apparently cured the problem.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. Let's continue on. We've got Michael came back, great, and we've still got Paul with us, and so this is a perfect time to grab agenda item 2.2 or 3.21. Yeah, 3.2. I don't know why that one's there. Oh yeah, there's two issues here with Michael and Paul. The election fraud conspiracy complaint and obstruction of access to grand jury complaint. And we've got both Michael and Paul capable of speaking to this. Michael, Paul, would either of you like to go ahead and bring us currently up to date on your progress fighting against obstruction of grand jury process and fighting against election fraud? Either of you? Paul, Michael? Michael just sent me a text saying, I've been muted whole time and can't talk. Mark was suffering the same problem, Michael. He hung up his connection and he dialed back in and now he could talk.
Testing 1, 2. Am I good still?
Yeah, Mark is still good. Michael, maybe if you can try hanging up and calling back in. It looked like you just did that. I don't know. Well, wait, let me, I can see. I can see the lines through your mute. It looks like you're muted on your end. It looks like, yeah, I'm not able to. There, Michael, can you say something?
Yeah, I can now. I don't know what's wrong with this system. Nothing was working. I don't know what's going on, but it's been very frustrating. I've been muted for 20 minutes and couldn't remove the mute. So there's clearly some technical problems.
I don't think they were targeted at you, so that's a good thing.
Well, if I may, I'd like to bring something up, if that's
sure, Michael. Go ahead. You're kind of garbled there. Watch your cell phone connection so you're coming through okay. We can't hardly hear you, Michael.
May I?
Michael, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
Okay. Did anybody hear about the lady, the college student in Kansas that was raped and tried to get a prosecutor to, convict and indict this guy that raped her, and the prosecutor refused?
Yeah, I saw an article on that.
Yeah, she filed for a grand jury because there's a law in Kansas that if it was dating back to 1887, if a prosecutor failed to provide you justice for the crime that was committed against you, you have provision in law in Kansas to get a grand jury.
Yeah, you can.
And her first attempt failed, but her second attempt succeeded, and she did win. And the guy was prosecuted and I think he
Wow.
pled guilty. Yeah,
I hadn't heard
it
that
just
part of it.
happened. And this came out.
Yeah, that.
You're breaking up, Michael.
Well, I'll let the guy talk since he wants to talk. Let Klaus talk. I'll shut up.
No, I'm just saying I've heard the first part, but I hadn't heard the last part. That was new for me. That she did get the grand jury. Yeah.
Charles, just Chris, two little things. One, in the case of the Kansas situation, it seems like the prosecutor is abusing his discretion. He's oppressing justice under color of law. He is not giving equal access to justice. That's a discrimination complaint at the very least, if not, in fact, a malicious lack of prosecution.
If I may.
Paul, yes.
Okay, one other thing that you gentlemen should know about concerning federal criminal prosecutions is that there's a 1972 Supreme Court case from Texas that was decided, and the decision was written by Justice Thurgood Marshall. And in his decision, there was a very similar case to this lady's case in Kansas. The problem there was that the Texas grand jury system allows a person to go to the grand jury with the permission of the district attorney. But one of the pressing issues across the nation has always been what is known as prosecutorial discretion. In other words, the prosecutor can look at evidence in a case and decide, well, I've got a good case here, I've got good evidence, I'm going to prosecute. On the other hand, he may look at his case and say, well, this is too weak and the jury will never buy this, so I'm not going to prosecute. Well, in Justice Marshall's decision, he was talking about the prosecutorial discretion, and what he basically said was this: a citizen cannot compel a district attorney to prosecute a case. That is clearly covered in this country under prosecutorial discretion. He did not address the right of a citizen to prosecute their own cause. But what he did say in the last sentence of a paragraph, when he was talking about prosecutorial discretion, he made this statement: a citizen lacks a judicially cognizable interest in the prosecution or non-prosecution of another. In other words, you can't force a district attorney to prosecute a case. Well, what has happened over the years, federal judges have been adopting that phrase, taking it completely out of context. And when citizens go before federal magistrates with a petition for an application for a warrant hearing, they are dismissed, not allowed to bring their criminal charges, federal criminal charges, I might add, into the United States District Court, because the judges are taking that phrase out of that paragraph, and they are looking at those petitioners saying, you don't have a judicially cognizable right under precedent case law to prosecute or non-prosecute another. Now, there is where you have any judge that says that, any judge, is an unindicted felon.
Yeah, because he's taking away the rights of the people.
It ain't just taking away the right, it's taking away the 18 U.S.C. 4 duty of a citizen.
Interesting.
And I'll yield.
Thank you, Paul.
So David?
David, yeah.
I've had so many cases in the Michigan Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit. in which that has been thrown back in my face. And it's all the more reason why we need to be discarding the statutory system in favor of what Charles is talking about here in the common law system. Yeah. Because a long time ago I was working with Doris Tate in Los Angeles, the mother of the Manson murdered Sharon Tate, and we advocated for victims' rights. And those victims' rights have been written into the Michigan Constitution over time, as well as other states. And for that ruling to be used in that way, that we don't have a right to have an interest in the prosecution or non-prosecution of another, which usually ends up being the government individual, that robs people of another constitutional right now, and that is the rights of crime victims. I yield.
The right to what?
The rights of crime victims.
Ah, okay.
In fact, there's the Crime Victims Protection Act. I believe that's 18 United States Code 3771. This is exactly the problem, because even the extreme Supreme Court, the de facto rump Supreme Court, has invented the pretext of qualified immunity for government agents and actors acting outside scope and sphere or color of law. However, the only way that you can prosecute a city or county for their failure to train, their failure to properly instruct their agents that work out there as their private mercenaries posing as public servants, is if you can prove pattern, practice, and custom of abusive policies that makes them culpable, liable, and suitable. This is exactly the conundrum we work up against whenever we have to go to a barred licensed attorney in the prosecutor or the U.S. Attorney's Office to get a complaint through. However, if they refuse the complaint, then that invokes the ability to go under the Private Attorney General Act of 1976 on a public interest or a private interest case whenever you can't get justice through the bar's agents, except that you're going to a bar court if you're going to theirs, if we don't have a common law of the land people's court to take our cases to. Thank you.
Very good, Chris. You're muted, Abraham.
Was that Chris Cave talking?
Yes, it was.
Well, that was pretty brilliant.
Thank you. It is similar to the private attorney general. We've got multiple forms of statutory codified enactments that bring us, that help us to assume powerful positions, and something equal and maybe even greater than the private attorney general codifications is the quo warranto state ex rel process, because at that point, you as a complaining party become the state, okay, by way of your relationship to the state. See, the state is, quote, an organic body politic governed by common law traditions and habits, unquote. That's what it is. And because you are a constituent member of that organic body politic, that's your relation, state ex rel, ex relation. You are the state. See, the prosecuting attorney, municipal jurisdiction, likes to posture as though he is the state. He's not the state. He's a municipal franchisee of the state. He's only moving into that prosecutorial state position because no individual members of the organic body politic as a constituent member is actually assuming that position. That they only can monopolize it because none of us are in there acting as constituent complaining parties, state ex rel, by way of our relationship to the organic body politic state community. I hope that makes sense. I see some comments.
Is that why they're all actors, Charles? Is that why they're all considered actors and they're not the real thing?
Yeah, it's all legal fiction, smoke and mirrors, gobbledygook. That's what.
Well, then why can't we just go ahead and fill those damn positions already?
They're municipal positions. The prosecutorial attorney general positions are municipal. We can bring complaints state ex rel and as private attorney generals, if that's what you're referring to.
If I may,
David.
Yes, Charles, I probably don't have to remind you that the Quo Warranto was the very first document that you and I worked on in the state of Michigan 11 years ago, and that I submitted that to the Michigan Supreme Court as one of those people you were talking about stepping up. And they just used more smoke and mirrors to adjudicate that whatever that is that they wanted without acknowledging anything that I was doing, and chewed me up and spit me back out, and which is the whole basis for in a pattern and practice why I have filed in South Dakota in the federal court for backward-looking access to court cases. And when we get to my court case on the agenda, I'll discuss that a little bit more. But it's been tried and failed. I yield.
Yeah, so far, we have had a lot of ugly failures, but we're moving in the right direction. And Lewis seems to think that Michigan Supreme Court is making some moves in the right direction, and he seems to have some evidence in support, although I recognize that you've definitely exhausted the pathway of peace with a lot of those Nazis. So anyway, we should probably go ahead and move on with our agenda unless there's other comments or questions here. All right, go ahead.
Just Chris has one little thing to add to you. You're exactly right. When you're doing state ex rel or U.S. ex rel, you're taking the role of the prosecutor when, like I say, there's a public or private interest case. In the particular matter that I'm having to defend and prosecute against, there's a public interest in not being murdered because criminals masquerading as public servants and FBI agents trying to murder me and others. We have a perfect right of the natural rights of man to live and not to be murdered by these masquerading mercenaries out there that are maniacal cop killers who want to shut us up because we're exposing the crimes they're committing and investigating them because they won't investigate themselves. It's a ludicrous concept to rely on self-adjudication, because who's going to find themselves guilty whenever they have the discretion to decide if they have or have not broken the law? No one can be a judge in their own matter as a maxim of law. And this is the problem that we have. Bar attorneys don't think they can do any wrong. They think that the people don't know anything, and therefore they're not qualified in their barred, skewed view of reality because they're trying to protect their own self-interest of keeping their lucrative employment and payments coming in and their control of the government and the people that they've seized total control of. Because, as we said before, there is a bar qualification for even their so-called extreme Supreme Court.
Right on, Chris.
That is insurrection. It is sedition. It is treason. It is domestic terrorism. I yield.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, David. And yes. We've got a whole lot going on there. I think we kind of digressed a little bit from the two issues about election fraud, and we did obstruction of access to grand jury complaint. To touch on that just a little while longer, Michael or Paul, do you have any updates on the election fraud or the obstruction to access to the grand juries?
Well, if I may, on the obstruction of grand juries, I will inform all of you at this time that I have now been indicted by a Coffee County grand jury on a felony charge. That is based upon a petition which Mr. Bobby Worthy and I filed or submitted to the grand jury last year, or earlier this year, rather. And it's kind of odd in a way. They allege in their special presentment that we made a particular statement, and they write it out. The problem is that statement, as they wrote it out, does not appear anywhere in their petition. So what they've done is they issued their special presentment in open court in Coffee County. The Superior Court judge issued a bench warrant, which in Georgia tells me that they really don't want us in their court, but they're going to inconvenience us in as much as they can. Well, Mr. Worthy in the morning is going down to turn himself in, and I will be going to my court here in Bartow County, where I will be filing a motion for habeas, a petition for habeas, and a motion to quash the indictment. So basically what we're doing is we are showing the people, anybody that pays attention to this case, and there's a lot of people in Coffee County down in South Georgia who are paying attention. And we're showing them that there are two ways in which to attack a fraudulent grand jury presentment. So stay tuned. Be sure and send me a carton of cigarettes every once in a while.
Say, Paul, just Chris, it seems to me like these people need a countersuit against themselves. Whenever it says special, look out, bend over, because somebody's going to take it up the posterior from what I've learned. And whenever it's a bar court doing this to you and crying, I don't know what felony they could claim that you did by taking a presentment to a grand jury. And it seems like they're actually tampering with the grand jury, if not in fact obstructing or oppressing justice in an area that they don't have, because the grand jury is not part of the government. It's the people's supposedly office.
Yes, sir. Well, what you have here, I believe, and I don't have any proof of this, but that district attorney in that judicial circuit has had it in for me since Christmas of 2019 on another case in another county that he's the district attorney of. And I'm assuming, based upon the reports I'm getting, that when he or one of his staff presented this our petition to the grand jury, that they expressed an opinion, quite probably unrequested opinion, that they thought that we had filed a fraudulent document in a court, and that's what we're charged with. It's a 20-year felony and $10,000 charge. So that is an assumption that will have remained to be seen. But the nice thing about it is,
so it's a malum prohibitum.
Yes, sir. The grand jury has expressed itself in its indictment that it reached this conclusion without one sworn piece of testimony from anybody. Well, that right there is a motion to quash.
Sounds like the grand jury is an instrument of the prosecution, and the prosecution is showing an egregious retaliatory, discriminatory, class-based animus, hatred, and loathing for anybody not part of their bar.
Succinctly stated, young man.
Is this an issue of how one defines a grand jury? If this document is a presentment from a grand jury and they are indicting you based on a statutory grand jury? Is this a common law grand jury versus statutory grand jury situation?
Well, what it is in the state of Georgia, the grand jury is established in our Constitution, and the way that came about is the people, when they established the Constitution, the people reached over into the common law and they picked up the grand jury as it was known in, what was it, 1787, I think it was. I think that's the date. And they picked it up fully clothed with all of its powers, responsibilities, and duties, and set it down in our Constitution in the black letter law. Now, what that does is, excuse me, it takes the grand jury, a common law grand jury, and makes it a statutory entity in our Constitution. Now, what they did something else. The people, and this is really smart of the people, the people did something else. They put another sentence. The last sentence in that constitutional provision specifically states that the legislature shall make no law concerning a trial jury or a grand jury beyond their selection and their compensation. So the legislature of the state of Georgia can't touch a grand jury. The governor can't touch a grand jury. The Supreme Court of the state of Georgia, nor the United States, can touch a Georgia grand jury. But now what they can do is, by virtue of precedent case law in the U.S., is there is a case in U.S. v. Calandra in which it is stated that the grand jury itself may not violate any valid privilege, whether established in the Constitution, the statutes, or in the common law. So they can be held liable for their misfeasance. And that's what I'm trying to do with the habeas and the motion to quash. And just so you understand the significance of what I'm doing, is Mr. Worthy is going down into their neck of the woods. I am requiring them by law to come into my backyard. If I'm going to dance for the devil, I'm going to dance for the devil I know, not down in their neck of the woods.
Paul,
yes.
It sounds to me like your district attorney there is committing warfare against you, war by illegal lawfare, in violation of ex parte Milligan, warring against a non-military. And because the bar is a warring force to begin with in this country, they were sent here to destroy this country, and they've done a pretty smack-up job of doing so in seditious conspiracy to undermine the republic and replace it with a demon-crazy democracy.
That is a good argument. That is a good argument.
All right.
And I thank you, and I'll yield.
Thank you, Paul, for the update there. Michael, do you have any further updates on either the election fraud or the grand jury issues?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Michael.
Okay. Not really. I just was hoping to get some kind of a response about the lady in Kansas achieving remedy and justice for her victimization by a rapist, and she used the existing system to achieve the remedy and the justice she sought. Is that not a fact that she achieved justice for herself through the existing?
If I may, Michael.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, that is exceptionally good news coming out of Nebraska. And hopefully,
Kansas.
I'm sorry, Kansas. I don't know why it is I can't keep them two straight. Okay, let me try this again. Kansas. Okay, Kansas. Maybe I can remember it at 75 years of age. But anyway, but yes, the fact that she was able to get to her grand jury is fantastic. Now, there's a problem across the country, and that problem is how many people's signatures does it take for her to get to her grand jury? Well, in her case, it took a little over 300, which she didn't have that big of a problem getting that many signatures. But you take a state like Nevada, and if I recall what I've read, Nevada requires 10,000 signatures. Well, that's
for a grand jury.
Yes, to convene a grand jury. That's so stupid. That is in effect.
That's insane.
That is, and to me, that is an unconstitutional bar to the right to petition.
Certainly is.
But
it's an unreasonable threshold, no doubt.
Yeah. Now, real quick, I did forget something about the election update, and that is this, and I'll be very brief. Voter Georgia, as most of you may have heard, has received court approval to audit the write-in ballots in Fulton County, Georgia. The Fulton County people filed a complaint the other day with the judge that the private security personnel who are away from the ballot area, but they are close enough to observe everything going on. Fulton County said to the judge, hey, they're making our people nervous. They're scaring our people. Well, the judge held a hearing, and he did not dismiss the private security firm, which did not work out too well for Fulton County, because when they went to the judge, the sheriff of Fulton County also went to the judge to assure him that they would also provide security for the ballots. Well, lo and behold, the two deputies that were assigned there, I think it was the day before yesterday, got in their cars, drove off, and for some period of time, I don't know how many hours it was, that facility was unsecured except by the private security agency. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of attitude the judge has toward the Fulton County Sheriff in a day or two. And I'll yield.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, sir.
We've got a lot going on there, but we've been less than professional in maintaining our agenda here a little bit. I think we've covered everything in 3.2.1 and 3.2.2 section of our agenda here. If there's no objection, thank you, Michael and Paul, for updating us on your section of the agenda here. If we can move on now to David Scheid, refugee from Michigan, to update us on section 3.3 of our conference agenda here. David, can you go ahead and give us an update on progress with your case?
Well, yeah, I think it's been 3 or 4 weeks since we've had our last discussion, and I can't remember at that point whether I had confirmation from the federal court that my case was actually filed with an assignment of a case number or not. But it was assigned a case number. Again, for those who are unfamiliar with it, I have filed a case ex rel, you might say, as a relative, or whatever you want to call it, as a whistleblower in a Quitom False Claims Act case, in which I'm making claims of backward-looking access to court cases, criminal corruption, sedition, treason, insurrection, and domestic terrorism as a quad amputee. and that this has been going on for not just years, but decades in pattern and practice. I believe the False Claims Act only goes back 3 years, but that's quite all right with me. But in assigning my case a case number, somebody has sealed the case. And so this case has been, it's in the courts. The cover pages are date stamped, and my cover pages are pretty elaborate. They call it out as sedition, treason, insurrection, domestic terrorism, and that I am, and I've got 95 state and federal actors that I've named. And in assigning the case number, this case has been sealed. So if there is no order in the docket sheet, there is no order as to who sealed it. And so the question is, was this done just arbitrarily by a clerk? Because there is no order that says that it's supposed to be sealed. I've found some other documents on the internet that basically say that it's kind of the standard procedure for in quitam actions and False Claims Act cases for the case to be sealed for 60 days to allow the government to decide whether or not they want to prosecute the case themselves. Well, in this case, the first named defendant is the United States of America. So and I've named all the U.S. attorneys and a lot of the actors, the President of the United States, formerly Trump, and et cetera. So for them to basically give them 60 days, for somebody to give them 60 days to decide whether or not they're going to prosecute themselves is a conflict of interest. So this coming week here, I'll be working on an objection to a formal objection that I'll be turning into the court, basically making the argument that number one, that in the past I've got all the evidence to show that I've given the United States the opportunity over and over again to do the right thing and to take the case and to do things with it, and they've turned me down, which is why I'm now acting on behalf of the people, the sovereign people, to be doing this myself. And that this 60 days does nothing except one of two things. One, if they take the case, then so that for the sole purpose of being able to hack it apart and then sell off or give away all the pieces, so that I end up with nothing as a case, or it creates a conflict of interest if they do that, obviously, or to give them 60 days to further plan their defense, which is a violation of the rules of procedure. So. All these arguments I plan on making in this coming week here, I think I can do it pretty concisely. I'm going to be sending it in as my objection and motion to have this thing unsealed. And that's where I'm going with this. I yield.
Say, David, I've had a little experience with this, and many times when you have a public figure, so-called, really a private pose as public figure, and or other notorious people involved, maybe famous in some cases, the judge will sua sponte on their own self-accord seal the case for scandalous and embarrassing accusations and allegations. They may be factual, but they try to protect the elites from being exposed without cause. One thing I've done that I've started doing, especially in cases of notorious allegations against supreme public figures like governors or district attorneys or judges or whatever else, when I paginate or pagination right down in the margins, down at the bottom where I'm putting the title of the case, the page number, the date, I will put an additional, all caps, not under seal. And that will kind of alert them that we are not agreeing to that before you put it in. Being proactive rather than reactive, I think, is a more sound course of action. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. David, do you got response there?
Yes, I do. Well, and I fully understand that, and that sounds like a good suggestion. Next time, if there is ever going to be a next time, because I had told myself a long time ago I was going to stay out of these criminal racketeering operations, but I thought that I might, in a new state, see what's going to happen with a new federal court in a new federal circuit and all this stuff to see what's going on. Now, the good thing is, a couple of good things. One, when this clerk decided that they were going to reject my filings in the very beginning as a quad amputee without looking at my stuff, they just sent everything back to me, and after a discussion on the phone and a letter that I had prepared, they ended up sending here in South Dakota, they ended up sending the prepaid postage for me to send it back. That, I guarantee, would never have happened in the Sixth Circuit, arena of the state of Michigan. Eastern District of Michigan Federal Court. Never, on your last day of life. Anyway, and then the second thing is that I actually got this case number. So it's going to be my intent to, usually what you said about sui sponte, there's usually another word that comes after that. It's the word order. And the docket sheet shows no order whatsoever. So my objection is going to be to challenge this court as to proving who made the order for it to be sealed, this case to be sealed. Was it arbitrarily done by the clerk? If so, the clerk is placing himself over me as a sovereign person. This is an administrator placing himself over me as an Article 3, in an Article 3 court, which I'm emphasizing, as one of the sovereign people bringing this case. Can't be done. And if it was the judge doing it sui sponte, he did it without an order. I want to see the order. And if there is none, I want him to make one so I can deal with that. I yield.
David, have you looked at the docket sheet on the case number? One question there. The other thing is your astute observation that may very likely have been the clerk. I have found it not to be infrequent that the judges will have the clerks do their dirty work to absolve themselves or try to evade culpability, liability, and suitability for their abuse of discretion under R60B. So they sometimes will put the onus on the clerk and let them pretend to it. And now a motion for clarification or delineation as to where the order is or who issued the order and by what authority might be a good tactic, I think.
Thank you. And yes, when they sent me back my date stamped paperwork, they did include the docket sheet. And yes, I did look over the docket sheet, and no, there was no order to seal. I yield.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you, David, for the updates on your case there. It's very interesting. I look forward to when we get our own court more functional and we can confront, we can process and wrap it up into one nice package and shove it back in their faces with some conclusions, some judgments, some final orders from our jurisdiction instead of being constantly suffering obstruction of justice in their rat maze of confusion that they call their civil municipal courts of procedure there.
Well, if I may, I just wanted to add that the reason why I'm keeping this case here in this in our common law arena, as we meet now once a month, is because I may be looking for this this group to be providing a jury decision based on my argument. Let's say I file an objection to this whole thing, and and it's looking to me like it's the beginning of a railroading to keep me away from a jury. Then I think it would be appropriate, apropos, to either. Well, I know somebody who would be advocating for a grand jury to decide that. I don't think that's going to be Paul anymore. But I do believe that we could, as an assembly, come together and adjudicate a jury decision about a particular event that's associated with my case, and come up with a determination there. Something that's not going to be very major, that's going to be relevant, it's going to be based on facts, and it's going to be based on my presentation to this jury, and something that we can use as a pilot situation to throw in the face of these corrupt officials. I yield.
Very good, David. Very good. Further comments or questions on David's case? Anybody? If not, we'll move right along here. The next case before our court is from Lewis Hammond, Judge Scott versus Sanford. I don't see anybody here to represent Lewis, and Lewis isn't here himself. Anybody here concerned about that case? Nobody here to represent it, so we'll move on. And the next one is the massive court corruption complaint in Nevada in Fed courts, including the county sheriff. Chris Cave is the plaintiff in that case. Brother Chris, would you like to summarize the status of your case currently as you're progressing with it?
Well, fortuitously, Charles, thank you for asking. I got past the 12B6 recently on part of the case, but they tried to, the cities and counties are trying to operate under the illusion that they are separate entities as opposed to being symbiotic, connected corporate partners and subcorporate agents of one another, and in bed together in cahoots. They're in the same flipping building. They may be on different floors in the same building, but it's ludicrous to believe that they don't meet after the facts in a common floor and discuss strategies against these terrorist pro se's they have to go against. And so I'm at the point now where I'm really in la la land of places I've never been before, of being forced to create subpoenas, subpoena ducis tecums, summoning witnesses to examine. And it's such a big case. I mean, I didn't create this case. This is where they came out and bullied me, attacked me. They destroyed my family. They stole cars from me. They tried to murder me twice so far, one with this county and one with the city. But some of the key individuals were involved in both incidents. So they're effectively functioning as one. In fact, that's U.S. versus Steele and U.S. versus Antone, or Antone versus U.S. and other cases. When they all function as one entity, they all become part, they call it a pool, their resources. They become one from discovery, and under Brady and Giglio purposes, their discovery obligations, they all act as one prosecution team. And we've got U.S. agents here with the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. attorneys, U.S. marshals, county, state, the governor himself, some of his assistant deputy district attorneys are involved in it. Then there's the counties themselves and the cities subcorps. There's marshals. There's joint terrorism task forces from all the different entities functioning as one warring force against myself to destroy me, because I had the audacity to investigate FBI murders and covers up of crime. I was a witness and a whistleblower reporting on the corruption in the court in Gloria Navarro's case against the Bundys. Also in Anna Brown's case up in Malahir Wildlife Refuge up in Oregon with the Bundys and some of the others, La Cavera and a whole bunch of people up there. And even Marcus Mumford, who they murdered in prison. He was a pretty astute attorney. He had a speech impediment, but he was a very, very good attorney. And they murdered him, I think, in prison, much like they did Edgar Steele. And so it's become very, very dangerous in the federal court systems and their federal private prisons. These private for private profits, so-called prison warehousing facilities are very, very dangerous places to be abducted and hijacked or kidnapped to. This is just a really dangerous thing in America. They become rendition centers. And of course, if you're female, you're subject to being raped repeatedly by different bad actors within the prison system. If you don't go along and cooperate, or if you act up, or they'll throw you in the hole or deprive you, torture you, threaten your children, your family. Sometimes they'll come after your people outside the prison to force you to comply and kowtow to go along as they want you to do and be subjugated. And of course, if you are an innocent man and you're in there, you still maintain, you're being unlawfully detained, you still maintain all your natural rights from the Creator. The right to be free from being abused, free from being locked up, free from being persecuted, being murdered by inmates that have been hired by the guards to do so, or fight, beat you up, or whatever else they do. It's horrific. But in this situation that I'm having to prosecute myself as a private attorney general under U.S. for X-Rail, my name, because I cannot find competent systems of counsel. I can guarantee to anybody on this call that there is a secret bar judiciary hit list of certain pro se's out here that are effectuous, and they will fix the courts. They'll load the courts up with special judges or prosecutors to keep you from having any success whatsoever, because they hate it when we're successful in their courts, because then it gives other non-barred attorneys and private litigators the inspiration that they might be able to get some success too, and that threatens their lucrative employment and their egregious unjust enrichment by preying on the rest of us. Any questions?
Sounds typical.
Yeah. Michael, do you have a comment about maybe the larger picture of what Chris and David are discussing here a little bit? Michael? I was responding to your text there, Michael. But thank you, David, or Chris, for that good update on the status of your case. And I think it is important that we discuss the individual cases here, because that gives our key players like David and Chris that are deeply involved in this, and Paul, stakeholder status. You got vested interests in coming into these conferences and explaining the progress in your particular case where you're on the front lines of this battlefield. And see, this plugs into our alternative economic system, because we can assign credits to you guys that are out here risking your lives to be on the front edge of the battle lines to try to help save our country. when you're standing up against crimes against yourselves, you're standing up against crimes against all of us.
Yep.
A crime against one is a crime against all. And
Yep.
when they're railroading you guys and abusing your guys' rights, they're abusing the rights of us all. Okay?
Yep.
And so we need to be supporting you guys. And another way, part of the agenda today is to discuss alternative economic systems to get extra credits, so you guys don't have to worry about gas in your tank and little dinky expenses. You guys can focus on really winning your part of the fight there, like we need you to be able to do while you're on the front lines of that battlefield. Thank you for stating your parts of this case here. All of you that did it, I think that's an important part of the process, but we should try to keep those portions maybe a little bit shorter as we're going through here. And we digressed in a number of areas, so I'm not really talking about here, but just general policy, because we do need to stress, like what Michael's talking about, we need to talk about the system. When we come into conference here, we need to talk about curing the problems for everyone, for all of our cases, and just have a few little updates on the individual cases as we're going forward here. And in pursuit of that, Chris, are you yielding for your part of the agenda here, Chris?
Well, I would like to add one more thing for Paul. I think it's important that he considers the source of who his accusers are, because they're his adversaries, and they're making up false narratives, false stories. They're actually creating perjury on the record. And of course, attorneys are not fair, neutral, unbiased parties. The attorneys are testifying to facts that are not in record. And under Haynes and Trenzy and several other cases, they're not competent witnesses to witness anything. They're putting words in there that don't appear. I've challenged. You say I say this, but show me in my writings where that actually exists. That's a farcical fantasy. You're fabricating false information and trying to charge a felony based upon it. That's malicious prosecution, the very essence thereof.
It's also fraud on the court, and if they send this stuff through the mail, it's mail fraud. And if they send it through wire and to create records that way, then that's wire fraud. And these are all felonies and federal felonies. I yield.
Thank you, gentlemen, for understanding the scope of this problem. I yield.
Thank you. I'd like to point out, Chris, the way due process deals with lies from prosecuting attorneys like that is for the person that's being accused to step forward and submit sworn testimony that prosecutor's a liar, and at that point there's evidence before the court that the issue is joined and joinder of issues. And at that point, the court has a due process obligation to demand that the prosecutor produce his evidence in support of his accusation, or else the court has a duty to dismiss the accusation, just like you're accusing it to be a lie. From your wording there, I didn't hear you specifically state that you denied on the record under sworn testimony that prosecutor was lying. Am I in error there?
I did not use the word liar. I'm just simply saying in my sworn affidavit that will be filed subject to habeas that they have stated a statement that does not appear in our document. So that basically is calling them a liar.
I think it needs to be formal, and I think Chris was talking about that also, but I see Klaus would like to speak. Go ahead.
Well,
Klaus.
I hate to interrupt, but I'm going to have to sign off for a few minutes because I've got something I have to do, and I will come back, sign back in. Hopefully you'll still be there, okay? It'll be about 20 minutes or so.
All right, we should be here.
Thank you.
Seems the prosecutor is severely truth challenged or fact deficient.
I think both of those are accurate.
Well, one thing that a lot of people overlook is making the court record that there's a denial of the accusation clearly on the court record under sworn testimony. When you've got sworn testimony denying the charge against you, then there's joinder of issue. That word joinder, it's a legal term. And once you have joinder of issue by denying specifically what the corrupted prosecutor is saying, then the issue turns on the evidence clearly in the court trial. And if there's no evidence in support of the accusation, the court is obligated to dismiss the charge against you. So I don't know if you're picked up on that at all, Chris. That it sounded like you weren't fully capitalizing on that.
This is David. Also, the strategy of fighting, if you think about martial arts, you can defensively block, but you can also block and counterattack and add the offense. So, you know, in the case of somebody lying, and that is fraud on the court, you're not only defending yourself to say that this is a lie, and a lie isn't even statutory. People lie all the time. There's a white lie, and you know, you need to tie it with something statutory that is a crime, and then go after that in a counterattack with aggressively to compel the court not only to dismiss what's against you, but to go after what you're advocating that is the real crime. And because you can create a crime by you know, they do it all the time, except we're so busy defending ourselves, we're forgetting about our own ability to counterattack. I yield.
Yeah. And the best defense is a good offense. Okay. If you're cutting your accuser off at the knees, then he can't move forward against you. Whereas if you just got a shield up, he can stay out there banging on you all day, and you can't let your guard down because you're under constant attack and being stressed for your full life. But if you take out everything below his knees, then all of a sudden the game changes. Then you can start attacking on him.
I must say, Charles, I take some issue with your reference to below the knees. I yield.
It's metaphorical speaking.
I'm kidding. All right.
I forgot you got a problem there, don't you?
I have no legs below the knees. You know, I'm an amputee.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get there.
If I may, I thank y'all for understanding and bringing forth all these suggestions. But just so you know, one document that I will not file with the habeas, but I will have it with me when the court hearing date is set, and that is an application for a warrant hearing. In other words, I will be charging all 18 grand jurors, the judge that issued the bench warrant, with the crimes that they have committed. So not only are they going to be coming up there to face a habeas and a motion to quash, when they get there, they're going to get hit right between the eyes with an application for a warrant hearing filed in the court.
Say, Paul, I think they also call that a ratification prior to commencement, which they should have had before they held your charge of you with a felony crime. They apparently skipped that part of the program.
I don't think they ever took the course. I think that district attorney was sleeping through most of his law classes.
Yeah. All right. Can we? Are we done with the summary of your case there, Brother Chris?
Absolutely. And I do observe, though, that this is very helpful when you're mired in the circumstance of the battle down in the mud and the blood and the guts and the beer, it helps to have other people outside so they can look at your situation with clearer eyes that are not conflicted and biased by the trauma of being mired in a fight. So hopefully we all help each other and provide alternative views of the case and maybe some salient facts to defend themselves with.
Chris, if I may, real quick, you might want to consider a federal application for a warrant hearing also. But be ready to go up on appeal with it.
I'd be thrilled to talk to you about that privately if you don't mind sometime. You seem to have some experience in the federal courts that I'm devoid of. You know, I've been in there before on a couple of things on land patent cases and stuff, but this is the only time in my life that anybody's ever leveled any allegations of felony crimes against myself. Now, I beat that one off, but to have people try to murder you and silence you for your advocacy and activism is a pretty appalling situation. I think it rises to the level of egregious abuse of government authority, and it's absolutely an atrocity.
It is, but what you'll have to pay attention to, and I'll just go ahead and mention this, get your facts straight and document them in a chronological order in your pleading. That's important, in your pleading. That's because that will form the basis of your appeal. And they come back and tell you, oh, but you have no judicially cognizable interest in prosecuting these officers. That's the question you will appeal.
If I may, I just would like to request that we might consider making an agenda item of that so that other people can have the privy of that information about that warrant appeal or whatever it is that you're talking about. If we could do that, I'd appreciate that.
Yes, sir. I'd be more than happy to.
Thank you.
What's the wording we're looking for there, gentlemen?
Application for a warrant hearing. That's a term that you can style most any pleading in state or federal court with.
Okay, yeah, I was hearing the word federal, and but if that's state and federal, that's all the better. I yield.
Okay. How would that sounds like a single procedural step. I'm not sure how that would be put into an agenda item. I think we need some broader context for that abbreviated phrase there.
If you can take a note, if somebody wants to take a note on the case site, the case you'll need to read is Gerstein, Gerstein versus Pugh, Pugh, and that's a 45-year-old case, and to my knowledge, they don't comply with that at all today. And that was a decision from the Supreme Court to all 50 states. And that is the authority for you seeking a application for a warrant hearing.
I'd like to look that up. I don't have the wherewithal to write that down, but Charles, if you're getting that, can you?
Let me suggest that you go on Google and just remember the one name, Pugh, P-U-G-H.
Is that C? I have a hard time between C and D and E and anything that has a consonant before the E sound. So
okay. Then let me spell it phonetically: Papa Uniform Golf Hotel.
Okay.
For those in the military.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've tagged notes on that in the chat window here if people want to refer to those.
Thank you,
Charles. All right. I like to think we're covering some real good ground here, gentlemen. We're at the close of our 2-hour mark. We're Especially in Lewis's conferences, our Saturday conferences, we usually close our formal business meeting, and I think that's a good policy to maintain. We're at our 2-hour mark here, gentlemen. Well, maybe do we have a few more minutes? Nope. We're at our 2-hour mark. I'm going to call an end to our formal business meeting. Abracadabra, this business meeting is hereby formally ended. And I got, here, a friend of mine in Oregon's been on the conferences, Little Liberty Bell. I need,
there you go.
Or sometime. Yeah, a little Liberty Bell. So some kind of sound effects to formal ends and beginning of the meeting. But anyway, I do hope y'all can hang with us here a little bit longer. We've got some good items on the agenda. I added a number of new items, cases to the agenda, and I think we might want to add, there's 3 other cases here in our case section of our agenda, and there's actually some other items in the agenda too after we get done with our cases. But looking at the agenda there, is there anything that any of you all would like to focus on any of those other 3 cases in the agenda? Did any of that spark any of your interest? Would any of you like to talk about it, especially David?
Charles, I'm sorry. I need to go. I've got to do some finishing up on my pleadings for tomorrow.
Okay, this 2-hour mark is good for people that got concerns about staying out of jail, things like that, Paul.
Yes.
Yeah, that puts a little.
Don't forget, send a carton of cigarettes once a month.
Yeah. Well, God be with you, Brother Paul. And
thank you. Same to y'all. Bye.
Right. Good night now.
I'm sorry, Charles, I didn't get that far down in the agenda item to read it. Since you mentioned my name, can you kind of elaborate on
the first additional case, number 3.6, is the Stephen Dosiger case. The first web link there under is to a video by a fellow named Chris Hedges, that's kind of left-wing news commentator. But this Stephen Dosiger has confronted Chevron and big oil companies that are polluting in Ecuador, and I couldn't help but think that this is a real good case if we could produce that. Stephen Dosiger is an attorney that's a bar member attorney that doesn't know anything about the issues of constitutional law like what we know about, and he's been under house arrest by a corrupted judge in New York for the last 2 years for standing up to the oil companies. And there's a lot of lefties that are worried about it, and if we could produce a jury verdict nullifying that house arrest warrant, that would be a big plus for us. That would make us real popular with all of these lefties, and him and the other attorneys are too stupid to comprehend what's really going on at these deeper levels of due process and constitutional law. So that's one primary case that would be a big advantage to us that I think I mentioned to you before, David.
Absolutely, I remember. Yeah, I will check that out for sure. I yield.
Okay. Maybe I can summarize the 3 cases here real quick. The next one is Joe Gilberti and his cases against a multitude of corrupted conspirators and FBI. I think that's one of the items in our expanded list of court cases here too. Would anybody, David or anybody, like to briefly, maybe Michael, comment briefly on Joe's case there? Hearing none.
It doesn't, well, it doesn't look like Michael's got his mic open, so I'll go ahead and just say that I've been in touch with Joe over the last few weeks and kind of keeping him abreast on what I'm doing, and he's quite excited about what he's doing, and to the point now of wanting of seeing the futility of being in the court system, even with as much power that he's been placing into this and all the evidence that he's been piling in. It reminds me of what I've been doing over the last 15 to 20 years, and he's got quite an arsenal of history that he can rely on whenever he wants to. Because of all the documentation that's been created and all the evidence that he's got. But his attention now is going to be to alternatives and to that system. And I don't know if Mike knows more about it or not, but that I think anything else should probably come from Joe's mouth, and we'll see. Hopefully we can get him involved in our conferences again. I yield.
Yeah, and I think a jury verdict would be real appropriate for him. It would help him to cut through a lot of the bureaucratic red tape, as it would with a lot of us. If Michael doesn't have any words on that, maybe we could go on the next issue, the last case that I've currently set in our expanded list of court cases here. Michael or anybody? Hearing none. The last item that I've added to our list of court cases being contemplated by our court is the USS Liberty case that we discussed also a little bit, David. You've prompted me at a number of
Absolutely. Especially
like this a little bit. Go ahead, David.
Since this is Memorial Day, it's most apropos for me to bring this up. That anybody can look this up on the Wikipedia, but this is the case in 1967 that Israel declared war on America, and LBJ hushed the whole thing up along with McNamara, and these sailors were murdered, slaughtered. They were on a ship that was a reconnaissance ship, so it had no defenses, and it was a clear day. The flag was flying, and at the time, America was allied with Israel. So this was a declaration of war. Israel said came up later to say, "Whoops, it was a mistake. Sorry, we just thought it was something else." And but it happened. When Israel was starting up that 6-day war in Egypt over the Sinai, and it's all very well documented. But those sailors that survived that incident were told that they needed to keep a hush on it for forever, and otherwise they'd all go to prison. And it took decades for this story to start coming out. Little by little, there's been some documentaries made on it, but the most recent one was put out called Sacrificing Liberty by a director by the name of Skow, S-K-O-W, and this came out last August. It is incredible. It's a 4-part documentary, and I've seen it. It's very, very well done, and it's very incriminating. Something that could lead to an indictment, even though LBJ has passed. I believe that it would be a valid reason to declare that that his posterity, his presidency should be stricken. You know, they want to take out all the left wants to take out all these statues of American history because of slavery, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this goes right along that line. If what's good for that is also good in striking LBJ's reputation as president and his legitimacy as president of the United States of America. So it's something that I've been working with in the aftermath of this documentary, and I think that it would be worthwhile to consider. I yield.
Thank you, David. Comments or questions on the USS Liberty case issue here?
Yeah, if I may.
Michael
in Florida. There's a pastor down here in Vero Beach on the East Coast named Rick Wiles. He has a ministry and a news production called True News. He also made a documentary about it. It was quite excellent. It was released, I don't know, about a year ago, maybe a little sooner. And it was.
That's the very same one. That's the one. That's the one I'm talking about. Sacrificing Liberty. Its marketing company is True News.
Yeah, I thought that was it. And his producers, I think it was Scott somebody, wasn't it?
I'm not real sure. Actually, I've seen a questionable entry on the credits with regard to who produced it and everything. But Matthew Scow was the director and did an excellent job. I can't rave enough about it. I yield.
Yeah, it was a great job. Absolutely.
I believe that was Admiral Kimmel's grandson was involved in the production of that epic expose of treason, high treason by FDR and associates and LBJ, of course. Both of them were treasonous actors taking offices of the United States as dual agents for foreign powers.
And when you consider LBJ's position and role, at least in certain documentaries dealing with the assassination of JFK. I mean, regardless of any controversy of the JFK thing, this USS Liberty incident, they call it, but it's really a massacre of American sailors that should have been given the recognition of them for the things that they did. It's LBJ needs to be held accountable even after his death. I yield.
Israel needs to be held accountable as well. They are not the ally of America. They are the enemy of the people.
Hallelujah. I agree. I'm with you there, and I'm working right now on a screenplay. The screenplay's been written by somebody in Australia, and I'm working as a gift to these sailors, the survivors. I'm working on a breakdown of that so that a budget can be made for it. I yield.
You know, there's something interesting that a lot of people aren't aware of regarding Kennedy and the Israeli connection with Kennedy. During his administration, he was strongly opposed to the Israeli lobby in the United States. He felt that it needed to be restrained, and throughout history, that has really been kept quiet because it demonstrates a connection to the assassination and the possible fraud of the Zapruder film. Is anyone aware of the fraud of the Zapruder film?
I have a bit of awareness about it.
Please tell.
nothing to do with making up videos by the CIA and the deep states projects of the Bush cabal and others involved in that, the mob and everybody else involved in the hit of JFK.
And there's more to it than that. I've watched videos on that recently on the JFK Zapruder film. That the original release of the Zapruder film footage has sections cut out of it.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. There's sections that have been purposely cut out. It was controlled opposition. There were they did. The Zapruder film did kind of show that it was more than one person involved. There was more than just Lee Harvey Oswald. So they kind of did throw a bone there, but it's like the onion. You got to get past. The Zapruder film only got you past the outer layers of the conspiracy. There's inner layers of the conspiracy where they're hiding certain sections of the film, so you can't see the angle from which Kennedy was shot. Things like that. And so there's people that have studied these things. Each individual case is unique, and it's got its own individual fields of expertise and study. And there's a lot of researchers that have documented not only the Kennedy assassination, but the USS Liberty conspiracy and 9/11 and so many other cases. You know, I'm a specialist in judicial process, in bringing justice to all of these cases, and I watch the details of them pretty close, but I get fuzzy on exactly what happened there with that footage of the Zapruder film and some of the other details of some of the other cases. But I know in my heart that yeah, there's a lot of problems there. So I'm glad you're all up to speed on the deeper levels of the conspiracy here, and see bringing in the USS Liberty case that touches on AIPAC and the Israeli lobbying that Michael was talking about, and Israel quite possibly also being involved in the Kennedy assassination. Because, you know, another element there is that Kennedy denied de facto Israel. Our vocabulary, they should not even be referred to as Israel. Israel is a good word. The name of God and the name of the people of Israel is being slandered because those jackbooted Nazis have hijacked that good term. I don't even want to call them Israelite. They call it the nation of Israel. They're not the nation of Israel. They're the nation of the Ashkenazis that are pretending to be Israelites. Okay? Legal fiction Israel, de facto Israel, whatever you want to call it. They've got a municipal Roman Empire model of government. They don't have an Israelite Torah law compliant model of government. So there's a lot there. But
if I may,
please.
I just had a real quick one, and then Michael, please. I just wanted to add one other element to the JFK assassination, and that was that JFK was ready to end the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve was board did have a lot of Zionist influence. You know, the Rothschilds and many of the others that started that Federal Reserve. So that's just another element that might tie in. I yield. Thank you, Mike.
Well, I allowed you to rob my thunder, David, but that's okay. You said it very well, but I'll take it a bit further. I would just like to kind of respond to Charles's comments. Not all of the Israelis are Ashkenazi or Khazarian mafia members, but we do need to leave room for exceptions. Israel does have some true Jews. Even Jesus spoke about the counterfeit Jews. He called them in Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. He said they were the synagogue of Satan, and then he referred to them again in chapter 3, verse 9. But yeah, as David said, the Federal Reserve was created in 1910 on Jekyll Island by a group of Zionists. I like to use that term because it differentiates from the good Israeli Hebrews. And I want to always make that clear that there is a difference, and there are exceptions. I'm sorry.
I would, if you don't mind, it's Chris. I was going to suggest that Zionism is really a cult posed as a religion. It goes back to 1666, Zabbatai Levi.
Yeah, I'm very aware of what it is. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, here's something that you may know about or Charles may know about. I've recently seen some information that tends to say that the true Israel, as opposed to Israel, is actually in Yemen or somewhere else in the Middle East, which is why they want to destroy. That's why PNAC has the Project for New American Century plan of 7 nations in 5 years or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, they want to take over the Middle East. That was their motive for participating in fomenting 9/11. The Greater Israel Project, or even before that, it was called the Ednad Yenan Project.
You're on the money.
Yeah, and these are the same people that brought us Hollywood and perverted our children and our wives with the sitcoms, and has wasted the talents and the minds of our young men with the infatuation of playing with balls, with the sporting teams, the bread and circuses of Rome. The Romans and the Jews have always worked in concert together behind the scenes. The crypto Jews have infiltrated the Vatican for centuries.
Michael, I think that Flavius Augustus Constantinus, aka Constantine the Great, so-called, who commissioned the building of the Viticon, the con of life that they call the Vatican these days, was actually, if not in fact one of the tribe, but taken over by him, but at the very least, because where it was built on the seventh hill of Rome, Vaticanus Mons, where beneath it was actually a swampy, marshy graveyard, and beneath it were many catacombs of ancient pagan god and goddess worshiping locations down there. And when they built the Viticon, they just put new disguises or wardrobes, costumes on top of the old pagan deities and called them saints.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
One other point
pagan
on
Rome of yesterday is today's Catholicism.
Yeah, the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire is the form of government under which Jesus Christ was nailed to the cross. Okay, it's the Roman Empire model of government is what was crushed after the Jewish Revolution tried to throw off Roman tyranny, Roman despotism, Roman municipal civil law. The Jewish people heroically rose up in resistance against Roman Empire civil municipal despotism. And that was crushed brutally by the Roman.
Bad echo.
Huh?
We got a bad echo.
You got a
that was probably me. I had my mic open. I was getting ready to say that I've got to finish up a project for the USS Liberty survivors that I was hoping to get out tonight. So I'm going to have to bug out. And I just want to say what a pleasure it was. And I'm sorry about the echo on that. So have a good evening.
Thank you, David.
Ciao, ciao.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good night.
See you, David.
All right. Yeah. The Roman Empire model of government, it was operated under civil municipal law and jurisdiction. And there's law documents I've got that say that that entire method of civil municipal government is based upon deception and confusion in order to keep the masses controlled, because that's the only way you can maintain the top-down authoritarian model of government. Whereas common law tradition is based upon Israelite Torah law tradition, and that's what Jesus and Christianity was really standing up for, and that's grassroots bottom up with accountability to the people. And so there's the polarity there. And the only other thing I wanted to say is Kennedy was also talking about denying de facto Israelite government access to nuclear weaponry. And I believe that could be part of why the de facto Israelites also threw in with Johnson and the other conspirators in.
I do remember reading about that.
Yeah. So I think the Israelites are involved in that, along with the USS Liberty thing. Those de facto Israelites, municipal Roman Empire Israelites, Pharisee Israelites. I think they are what's modernly called the State of Israel, and they are a serious problem through AIPAC and things like that. They've basically hijacked our entire system of government, and that's why cases like this USS Liberty case would cause that entire ugly pot of confusion and pus and incestuous stink to unravel and be exposed for everybody to see. So I'm enthused about that USS Liberty case being on our agenda. I want to keep it here. We should put a wrap on the cases issue. Is anybody else got any comment on as we're concluding our agenda items on the cases and things?
Charles, I will say I have a strong extraterrestrial suggestion that what we know as ancient Rome was actually Ra-Mi, where Me acts as the sun god to give the illusion that I have those powers to be able to control and demonate men. And that's basically the basis for Nimrod building his tower to Baal, Babel as they call it. And whenever they had that tower and the confusion of languages, the 13th tribe, Arthur Koestler, who was murdered for writing that book, exposed the Ashkenazi Khazarian Empire as those who actually were of the synagogue of Satan, who were from ancient Sumer and Babel.
Sounds right, Chris. Yeah. Welcome back, Klaus. Glad to see you made it back with us. And Abraham's still hanging there. Abraham, show us some video. We want to see your face. Continuing on. Gary Bergman's not with us. Agenda items 4. I've got a YouTube video where I talked about economic incentives to be allocated as rewards to honorable individuals. I think if I should probably pause here before I go strictly with our agenda. We're out of our business meeting. We don't have to be so formal, but I would like to kind of steer the discussion towards this alternative currency and economics things, because I think that is marketable. We can economically empower people better than anybody else in the USA. We've got the lawful insights to do that. But I want to pause first Is there any other issues from anybody, the 6 of us still in attendance here, that would like to grab the microphone and rant for a little bit about just anything on their minds? Anybody? Anybody?
Nobody else is talking. I will
I'll check
give
it.
a good
Yeah.
news chant to the fact that many places are finally casting off their mask hysteria, and it's just absolutely insane that Americans would let other people tell them how to do that, especially when they got substantial interest in promoting their so-called vaccines and dangerous bioterror weapons posed as vaccines.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good progress right there, isn't it? See, it's a battle for the minds and hearts of the people. And the minds and hearts of the people are slowly but surely, slow as molasses, but slowly but surely, they're getting smarter. They're becoming more spiritually enlightened. And this is a good thing. This means we can win this battle, you guys. Yeah. Any further comments, or can I go into my rant about economic credits and economically empowering our common people? Hearing no objection. All right, thank you, class. At least we got some video hand signals there, if not audio. Yes, the item in the agenda labeled 4.2 economic incentives are to be, let me read a little bit, are to be allocated as rewards to honorable individuals who responsibly invest their time and energy into any project which advances the grassroots empowerment of our common American people while remaining within the framework of our common law compliant republic. I hope all that makes sense. That opening sentence there kind of encapsulates the whole project. We can target economic rewards to good people that are doing good work. We can do it now. We can assign economic credits. And, well, we don't have anything. That's what the counter argument is going to be. Charles Stewart, you don't have anything. You live hand to mouth off of your Social Security check there. Well, that is true, but Bitcoin doesn't have anything either. Federal Reserve notes don't have anything either. None of them have anything. It's just a system of accounting and credit debt assignments, okay? And when we contemplate the wording of that's backing up so-called Federal Reserve notes, when pressed on that, what backs it up? They use the wording, quote, the full faith and credit of the American people. If that's not a pile of ambiguous wording, I never heard anything so ambiguous, but it does have some substance. And what it means in its more favorable light is that the American people are willing to invest their production of goods and services. They're willing to do things or deliver products to other people in exchange for Federal Reserve notes, because they think that they're going to be able to take those Federal Reserve notes or Bitcoins and exchange them for what they want to other people. So it's just a system of accounting for promises to deliver goods and services further on down the road. And when we realize that, and we realize that the most productive and valuable people in our American nation, I dare say, are the people in attendance in this conference, people like us that we know and we work with, that are willing to confront the parasite class that is destroying our nation, willing to construct responsibly self-governing communities. These are the people that are the gold standard that we need to be. How we start this kind of a system is to produce a line of credit for everybody in this conference that's maintaining minimal standards of behavior, you get a line of credit. You get access to the spigot of cash flow. And to start out, people will be going, what is this? Supreme Court of Law USA credits, or we can call them common law credits or natural law credits or anything we want. We can. The name is still up in the air, but like with Bitcoin. Remember how Bitcoin started? We'll be starting in a similar way, where at first it's quite unpopular. At first, it will be of low. Our currency credits will be of low value. People won't be exciting a real big value to them because there's not much that you can get other people to deliver in terms of goods and services in exchange for our credits that we're keeping track of. But just like Bitcoin, with time, it's going to grow. Okay, so at the grassroots here, we offer incentives. We offer incentives by adding 10% of I was giving the example to Abraham earlier, where somebody goes into a pawn shop and asks the pawn shop to give them a cell phone that's priced at $100. Well, we give them 100 credits, silver gram equivalent work product credits for the cell phone, and the pawn shop owner is going to say, wait a second, that don't sound equivalent to dollars. Well, it's not directly equivalent to dollars, but silver's not directly equivalent to dollars either, and silver's still a value. And we've got alternative systems of credit and debt marketing, and the similar to Amway, you give a percentage of the profit margin to the people that are willing to invest and take a stand in the product. And so at the beginning level, when somebody in a pawn shop is considering whether or not to take $100 worth of credits for like a cell phone or anything else that the pawn shop is selling, we from our credit central accounting system, we add another 10%. So that pawn shop owner will actually get 110 credit units instead of just 100 for the value of what he's doing. And when the credit, when the pawn shop owner wants to deliver his credits, his 110 credits to common law credits, let's call them for the time being, to the somebody else that comes in wants to sell a laptop computer for 110 credits, that the guy that agrees to take the common law credits for 110 of them for the computer that he's delivering to the pawn shop, that guy would get 120 credits or 112 credits, 10%, something like that. And so at the beginning levels now, while we're starting out, each person that accepts the currency gets a 10% increase in the value of the currency, kind of like Amway, incentivizing your grassroots distribution system. Do y'all comprehend how that could be made to work? And that because we're the ones that are talking about doing a paradigm shift in the way American constitutional government works, we down the line, we've got a massive brass ring, golden pot treasury reward at the whole thing. Instead of like Amway or Bitcoin, there's no ultimate payoff like what we're talking about in reverting to, in changing the entire system of government to a more accountable and economically prosperous system of government. So I hope that whole package kind of comes together in a picture that you can all comprehend. And I should probably yield there for comments or questions. Anybody?
Well, I'm going to have to say goodnight. I've got some things I need to get done, and my time is running out. I enjoyed the conference, and I hope to be on the next one.
Thank you, Klaus. Your participation here was very valuable.
And good to see you all.
All right.
Good to see you, Klaus. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Well, all right. Klaus left, and I guess we're just down to 4 of us. Comments, questions, anybody? With just 4 of us, we can take the conversation any way we want from here on out.
What about Abraham?
Yeah, Abe's been kind of quiet. I wonder if he's just pretending like he's here while he's off singing and dancing with some hot chick or something.
Oh, he's here.
Hey, there he is. Where's that woman you got with you? You taking your girlfriend with you?
No, I buried her.
All right.
Lost your hat. Good money ideas, Charles.
Thank you, Mark.
It'll always evolve. It'll evolve. But I'd like to say, since you're on, Abe, I haven't said much. I've been listening, but you mentioned. Well, first of all, I'd just like to say that Fauci, from what I have heard, is on the run, big time. So.
What's on the run, Mark?
Fauci, fake Fauci. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just recently heard it, but he's not to be seen. So he's probably going to Europe. He's sold his house, I think, and he's not in his apartment. Or everything's gone in his apartment, something like that. So, yeah. So he's had enough. And but Abe, to what you spoke earlier, here it is. Well, anyways, it was about, where are we going? I think you were speaking. I don't think your question got answered as to what are we doing to, well, it partially did, because it signified us as a group, quote, group. But as far as promoting the group, like, what do we do? I don't know if it involved that. Let me ask you, did it?
Well, yeah, to have the status and identity, yeah.
It's just normal. It's normal behavior. We're the ones that have to push it forward. That's obvious, but it takes the group effort and what we do individually. So again, you could consider it like a multi-level. You have to extend to your circle of influence and get it out there. And the bigger, the better, and the more, the merrier. That's about it, And you got a link to bring them here, and whatever else you need to provide them with, and we will have more tools for that as we go.
Yeah.
Simple math. It's simple math, but
inundating.
But then later on, hopefully, we will have a person that's been in with campaigns that can educate us, to make it the snowball more. And how to do that professionally. Yeah, I don't know. Are you in touch with any of that, Charles?
In touch with who?
Like people that do campaigns, they're used to funding, elements of funding and all that stuff, and getting people together to join their cause.
Well, those are usually people that are indoctrinated with standard capitalist profit motives. See, our work product is so different here. We're not in it for a profit. We're not trying to sell somebody a bag of goods. We're trying to build organic, self-governing communities here, and that's the market.
I'm just talking about raising our numbers.
Right. But I think you were also referencing marketing professionals, and those people are thinking about how to grow this system in a profit-oriented manner, and that's not that messes with the value that we're delivering to our grassroots people.
I hear you there. Well, we can't have that, so
we need people that are concerned about the cause of justice and liberty to be involved in the engineering of the foundation of what we're building here. Only people like in this conference can comprehend what we're talking about. You get some PhD with a PhD in marketing, he's just going to come in and screw it up. He's going to miss the essential elements.
Yeah, I hear you.
Thank you.
But anybody that we would get that has techniques to,
well,
you know,
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
After we get something up and running, then we can ask those people to come in and help us fine tune what we're doing. But we don't want to start off on the wrong pathway here because we're deferring to some guru that's got a PhD behind his name.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So where are you from, Abe?
From Brooklyn, lived in the Manhattan, the Bronx, New York City most of my life.
I kind of sense that in your voice. I'm from Detroit, transplant 52 years ago, Portland, Oregon, because of my dad's work and automotive industry steering gears. He's a sales designer and took care of the regional West Coast, you know, Freightliner, Peterbilt, Mack truck, and all that stuff. But my mom's side is from Syracuse.
How do you get that image behind you?
It's just a picture that I had. I had actually loaded them on here when Charles first suggested this site, and they were still in there. I just shifted a couple around. I thought, oh, I kind of like that, you know.
It's a virtual image. It's not really there, right?
No, yeah, correct. It's just a picture, yeah. And I had about a dozen of them that I picked to try them out and see how it did. But I do now have.
Jitsi lets you do that.
Evidently, yeah, they do. It's let's see, it's down by your video. If you right click it, no, damn it. No, that just takes takes it off. No.
How did you put it there?
Well, it's a thing that. Oh, it's on more. It's right next to the red phone. Oh, damn it. Why is this thing staying up here? Select window or screen. Mute website notifications. Yeah. Did you see that next to the red phone? The dots, it says more actions. Next to the views, you know, the 4 squares for the view, right in the middle at the bottom there.
You have to push the 3 little dots first?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And more options. Okay. And then what?
Yeah. Well, right now, mine is being blocked, but it's select background. It's down into the middle, second from the bottom when it's straight up there, right above speaker stats, and below
Are
share
you
your.
using a cell phone or a computer?
I'm on a computer, laptop.
Okay, that's why it's showing different information.
Oh, really? Okay. I can't see what it starts with because this other window allow Jitsi to see your screen. Okay. Well,
yeah, it doesn't show it on. It doesn't show it on the phone.
I can't. Oh, are you on a phone?
Yeah, I'm on a phone.
Oh well, that's probably why. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So being on the computer makes it easier. Okay. That I wanted to know that.
I didn't think you'd be on a phone with, but maybe you're on an iPhone, right?
What'd you say? You didn't think what?
I didn't think you were because your video is full screen. You know how they usually do the centerized thing with the phone.
It's a good phone.
Yeah.
So you said you're from Detroit?
Detroit, suburb, white bread, you know, but it was nice. Not real high class stuff, but good neighborhood. But my mom's from Syracuse, small town outside of southeast of Syracuse there.
Syracuse, New York?
Yeah. I've been there. Loved going there. It was about 500 people when she grew up. And I know Charles from him being up in Portland. And so we've been here for 52 years. It's lovely out here. You been to the West Coast?
San Diego for a little while. That's about it.
Way down there, yeah. And it's getting hotter right now, but we're blessed with this breeze most of the time, man. It's just really nice. It cools down at night because it's a desert environment. You know, most of the state has that climate as opposed to the East Coast, you know.
Yeah, I
Which, of
was in
course,
Phoenix a couple of years ago when I first went to Phoenix, and
yeah.
I didn't realize they got that hot on Earth. And I was listening to the news, and it said we're having a cooling spell. It's going all the way down to 100.
Oh God, yeah,
I
right.
heard them say that on the news. I'm like, what the hell did I just
Yeah,
hear?
it was probably joking, but
No. The cooling spell was going all the way down to 100.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's been really hot in California, though. Like,
Oh,
you
it's been
know,
over 100 today here in Vegas.
is that right? Are you in Vegas? You're in Vegas?
Yeah.
Oh, but you're from New York. I see.
Right.
Okay, okay. So you're out here now. All right. But
I also did mostly sales and marketing, but I worked for myself for most of my life.
yeah, good. All right. I'm a telesales pro of like 20 years, a lot of phone work.
Oh, yeah, I did that. I worked for some very big companies in New York City, big telesales organizations.
Oh, really? Such as?
Well, there was one Campaign Communications Institute on 57th Street, Manhattan, on 8th Avenue. They had about 500 guys in that company. And
Wow.
that was a pretty big organization. But, you know, when I worked for a lot of the Manhattan telesales places, oh, boy, these were some top-notch operations. You know, some of these places were on like the 60th, 70th, 80th floor, you know, big Park Avenue places.
Wow.
I got, boy, those telesales guys, my God, these guys are geniuses with their voice.
Yeah. What was the nature of their business?
I'm not sure what you refer to when you say telesales, but these guys would say like industrial chemicals, cleaning solvents across the country to mechanical facilities, farms. So it was mostly outbound calling.
Yeah.
My daughter did pretty good. She ran a 100-man marketing team for Verizon. She was inbound phone operations, and she ran and managed the office.
Damn. Yeah.
For Verizon. She just built a custom house and moved in about 3 months ago.
Sweet. How do you like Vegas? I only know one person that I don't even know if he still lives there, but
Vegas, you know, I grew up in Manhattan, you know, so
yeah. Oh my God.
I was always accustomed to a lot of commotion, and you know, Vegas is like a mini Manhattan, you know, very mini. But that strip, my God, you never been here, huh?
No, just the airport.
Yeah, there's one place. Fremont Street. Fremont Street makes all of New York City look lame, really lame. I'm talking about the amount of insanity. It's just, you know, visual insanity.
As to, like, you mean like all the lights and stuff?
The kind of commotion that unfolds in the street in their entertainment districts makes Times Square lame by comparison.
Oh, you mean like wackos and the way they dress and all that stuff? And
absolutely off the charts.
Oh, shit. So that makes Hollywood probably look lame then, possibly, because Vegas is over the top.
It's been referred to as the most insane 3 miles in the world.
Wow. Is that a danger zone?
I wouldn't go that far. I live maybe 10 minutes from the Strip. You know, the people who live here don't really go down there very much. You know, it's mostly for outsiders and entertainment. But you know, you got 3.5 miles of billions of dollars worth of buildings, $1 billion buildings, and it's an amazing thing to live around.
But I mean, are people trying to like panhandle you on the street and stuff? Is that
no? It's no more violent than New York City. You know, it's not like that. But you know, they have a lot of the what do you call it, expos. They have all the expos, man. They got them like every week over here. The this expo, that expo. So if you know, if somebody wants to stay in tune and keep your fingers on the pulse of what's happening in the world, Vegas is the place to be.
Okay, all right. So that would be someone coming in just to do their show there, right?
Yeah. Well, you know,
whatever,
but if you live here, you can see all the expos, and Yeah, I'm not, young like that anymore. But if I was, I'd go to all the expos just to keep up to the minute on everything going on.
So I got you. I got it's not necessarily a convention. It's a showcase for something like cars or
everything.
the newest
Yeah,
designs and
yeah.
gadgets and shit. Yeah, okay.
Like the electronic
Yeah,
expo
that
down
would
here,
be
it's
cool.
like second to none.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Because people go, yeah, we're gonna have our showcase. Our what do you call it? What do you call it? What do you call it? An expo. What do you call it?
An expo.
An expo. Yeah, we're gonna have our expo guys in Las Vegas. Come on, join us. It's a whole big thing. They're all pumped up about it. And yeah. So do they do that? They usually do it like in a hotel, or they don't do it like in some tent
They
thing.
have a lot of this place is known for that. So they have giant buildings dedicated to all these giant showcases for all these all these things
the
all
stage
over
and the
the
whole
world.
thing. Yeah. Showrooms. Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it would take days, and these expos go on for days and weeks.
How long you been living there?
Probably about maybe 7 years.
Can you buy like an all-around pass to stuff, or is that non-existent?
I've never
like Disneyland.
I've never really did anything on the Strip. I never really visited these things. Just in passing through, it wasn't when me and my girlfriend, we bought a house down here a few years back. When all the prices dropped, and Vegas has a very wild real estate market. It swings violently, from boom to bust. So we were looking in Albuquerque, we were looking in Phoenix, and so we came out to Vegas. And as soon as we passed by the Bellagio, we knew neither one of us had been to Vegas, and we was just driving, and the highways force you to go drive by the Strip, and we drove by the Bellagio. What was it called? It was called it's one of these big hotels here, and they have a giant water show on the Strip. And we drove the Bellagio. That's what it is. And we said, that's it. I don't care what, we're getting a house here, because anything that has something that nice in its backyard, you need to stay there.
I'm sold.
That was it,
my
man.
God.
Because the tourists, the attractions, people coming in from all over the world, the spectacular displays, no price is too much. I mean,
the Eiffel Tower,
amazing. Yeah,
the pyramid.
I love having that in my backyard. I don't go very much, but knowing it's there when I want to go, I like that idea.
So, are you like about a mile away from the Strip?
More like 3-4 miles.
Is that right? It must like really light up at night, man. Just like like the light from the city. Like I can see ours from here, from Portland. The light emanating up into the clouds.
It's not very big. I mean, New York City. I mean, hell, it covers the entire horizon when you're coming in on the highways.
But all that light power, Abe. I'm talking, all the lights there, man, in one small place.
Yeah, you could probably see them from. You could probably see them from Mars.
Yeah, no doubt. But I mean, what about from your house? Don't you see? Don't you see it?
You don't have that kind of spillover. It's not like a giant stadium. Not like a giant stadium. Where the stadium lights kind of diffuse all over the. No, it's not like that.
Huh.
You should definitely take. I mean, the coronavirus nonsense really knocked down, the excitement of the Strip. But everybody needs to take a trip over here just to kind of peruse and cruise. It's just the best of what the decadence that this world has to offer is there just to view.
Just walking up and down.
Yeah. The hotels go out of their way to get everybody's attention, and it works.
It's like the most magnificent boardwalk on the planet.
It's the best 3.5 miles that this earth has to offer in terms of the decadence, the perversion, the excitement, the insanity. Yeah, it's the best 3.5 miles the world has to offer.
I got to go triple X on you. Is the nudie thing very prominent up in that whole bit?
You see a lot of the showgirls in the street, taunting their wares to come into the clubs. But other than that, no. The Fremont
Okay.
Street, which is kind of like the other version of the Strip, more locals. You know, that there can get very seedy, but the Strip itself is very classy.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Interesting.
Can I jump in here? Yeah.
Jump away.
Well, interesting side discussion there, fellas.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. You two, especially Abraham, but you also, Mark, have pointed out to me that you're both seem to be quite skilled in sales and marketing. Okay. Okay. And I've worked with Abraham for a long time, and I've known you for a long time also, Mark. I wasn't really clear about your marketing skills, but I know you well enough to know that you're a stand-up guy. And from my recent discussions with you, you sound like a competent marketing sales guy. Okay. And I know Abraham is excellent at marketing and sales. And so I've got a
plot thickens.
Huh?
The plot thickens.
Yes, the plot thickens. I'm rubbing my hands together because I got
where's this guy going to?
I've got something that I want to market. And I can bump up the incentive for you guys. You guys, I need to construct documents because it's so complex. The three issues are entangled. One of them is the entire economics thing, the alternative credits system that we were accounting bit. But there's two other issues. One of them is identification cards. We were talking about that earlier. Identifying yourself, having a picture ID like a passport or something that is cutting edge, that is in their face, telling them to back the hell off and leave you alone when you present this document to them. Okay, we can do that in cutting edge fashion. That's part of the package. People will have the alternative package economic system. People will have our own identification cards, passports, type documents that will be linked to their own economic account that's keeping their so-called electronic wallet of credits account that they can deliver, they can transfer those credits instantaneously to any business that is willing to accept them. And issue number three, on top of the economics, on top of the ID cards, is elections accountability. The voting process, the political process. This plugs us in to real-time organic accountability elections. Okay, that's three real powerful issues, all three of which desperately need to be changed and improved in this these United States of America for everybody. And we can do it all in one package. All in one package.
It sounds like a membership. It sounds like a membership that you're referring to.
Yes, in and packaging that correctly in responsibly self-governing communities. You can be Roman Catholics or Pharisee Jews or Masons or anything else you want to be if you're willing to assemble a group of people into a common law compliant self-governing community.
Well, there's a lot of merit to that. I would get behind that 100%. Just have to figure out the expansion paradigm. How does the thing expand? And the ID, the design of the ID, that wouldn't be a problem. The elements to make the ID look super formal, very official. I told you I made IDs. I had a security company. I made my own security IDs.
Right.
Hell, they were good enough to to get into jails. Like if you needed for ID to visit somebody in a prison facility, they were good enough to get narcotics. Like if you had to get a prescription fulfilled with controlled substances. controlled substances. So it worked for that. They were good enough to cash checks. They were good enough to get state IDs. So
Wow.
my security IDs were about as good as you could get.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The computer programs are available to do that modernly, very quick and efficiently.
Absolutely. But those machines are like $3,000.
Well, you know,
That's
we
your
might,
end, Abe. That's your end, Abe.
well, to start out, we could contract to have it done, probably, but eventually we would want to get our own machine and produce our own. Yes, but the technology involved there is also barcodes. You know, they've got those digital pixel pictures and barcodes and web pages. All of that could be on an ID card to where anytime a cop stopped us, it could be linked to a web page. It could be linked to a file, and we could have extra copies of your ID card. Just say, here, this is who I am. This has plenty of ID, web links and everything on it. Why don't you just let me go? And you keep this extra copy of my ID card and fill in all your paperwork later. Bye. Have a nice day.
Here, here.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
But we got to be a bona fide group first, right?
we are a bona fide group. It needs some type of formality. Supreme Court of Law for the USA, constitutional government of the USA. I've also got a religious entity, which is very powerful, Natural Law Church, and we could make up different organizations too, if we wanted to. Looks like we lost Abraham there.
Somehow.
Hey, Charles, it's Michael here. I'm going to have to go myself. It's getting late for me.
All right. Yeah, I know you're on the East Coast. I'm glad you could join with us, Michael.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Talk to you guys later.
Hey, Michael. All right.
Good night, Michael.
Good night.